Thank you, Dave. Tonight's game is available on TSN HD and in 5.1 Dolby Digital Surround Sound. TSN, Canada's sports leader in high definition. Well, we're ready for the rematch as the Stamps and Bombers clash for the second time in 5 days. Rain earlier in the day, but not a bad October evening with the temperature at 10 degrees and the wind out of the northwest at 26 kilometers an hour. Well, Tom Higgins' crew snapped a 3-game losing streak on Sunday. The Stamps seem to be destined to finish in third place, which may have a lot to do with his decision on his quarterback in this game. More on that in a moment, but on the other side, it will be Doug Barry and the Bombers on their first losing skid of the year. They've dropped 2 in a row, 3 of 4, and he wants the eye of the tiger from his team down the stretch.
Yeah, you're starting to feel a little bit of tension in the air here in Winnipeg in the province of Manitoba. A team in the Winnipeg Blue Bombers that had a nice cushion for first place in the East and have watched it evaporate over the last couple of weeks. They want to make up for a poor effort a week ago in Calgary.
So the Blue Bombers with that precarious 1-point lead in the CFL East. But they say they're not panicking, and I think you saw relaxed Doug Barry in his interview with Brian Williams and on the sidelines as we get set for the kickoff. Sander DeAngelis has it on the tee, and here we go. Albert Johnson back in the lineup. And Johnson with the return. A little impact to say, I want to stay in the lineup. Good return up near midfield as he brings it back 27 yards, and Kevin Glenn leads the Bomber offense out.
Excellent field position for Kevin Glenn to start this game. He has Charles Roberts in the backfield, as we talked about in the pregame show. Maybe hasn't seen the ball as much as a lot of football fans would like to see him with the football in his hands. Likely more tonight. Milt Stegall still chasing Alan Pitts, just over 300 yards away. And Abi Khan in the lineup at center on the offensive line.
Stegall and Derek Armstrong both sitting on potential 1,000-yard seasons with their first catch of the game, and Charles Roberts with the first carry of the night.
And that offense up against the Calgary defense that played very well a week ago in the first game of this home and home, led by Karan Williams on the defensive line. 3 sacks in that game, along with a couple of forced fumbles. Trey Young has moved from the safety down to the linebacking core in what is now a 43 defense, not a 34 defense, and that moves Dwayne Carpenter to safety with Julian Battle at halfback in his second start.
Starting lineups are brought to you by Holiday Inn Hotel. 2nd and 9. Glenn to pass, and it is complete. And there's Milt Stegall with the catch to the Calgary 40-yard line. And Stegall has 16, and he is now within 7 of his 10th 1,000-yard season.
And that cuts into his race to catch Alan Pitts as well. But you can see the sense of urgency in the offense and the special teams for the Winnipeg Blue Bombers coming off that 38-25 loss a week ago to the Stamps.
There are the numbers for Milt. 7 away, 120 yards last week. Pat McMahon as Kevin Glenn looks downfield. And Derek Armstrong got his feet tangled with the corner Kranz Clemens, and a flag is thrown.
Well, I think, Chris, it was more than just tangled. Kranz Clemens on this play was beat cleanly by Derek Armstrong going down the field. That was a touchdown throw coming from Kevin Glenn, and Clemens had no choice but to pull him down.
Forward pass interference, Calgary number 32. First down at the point of the foul.
You can see right there in the screen that Derek Armstrong is already on the ground, and Kranz Clemens had grabbed his jersey, tripped him up, and thrown him to the ground, or he was beat for a touchdown.
Turns out to be a 12-yard penalty. Armstrong within 21 of a 1,000-yard season. First down. Second carry. Trying to practice 4-3 Calgary defense, and another short gain for Roberts.
Well, they will want to establish Charles Roberts, and of course every time the Winnipeg Blue Bombers lose a game, the one question is, why didn't Charles Roberts get the ball more? Last week he had 13 carries for 78 yards, and of course he is chasing Joe Smith for the BC Lions for that rushing title, and you know Charles Roberts loves to have that crown.
So he started 56 yards behind Joe Smith, and another number to watch, 25 yards away for Kelvin Anderson, to move into 5th on the all-time rushing list. No yards for Roberts. 2nd and 10. Clinton pulls it down. He takes off. He'll wait for a first down and falls at the 15-yard line, but there is a penalty marker on the other side of the field.
Kevin Glenn has not done a lot of that, rushing the football this season. 32 carries when he has scrambled. Most of the time, the average for a quarterback when he's a running quarterback.
Illegal contact on a receiver, Calgary number 30. That penalty's declined. First down.
Cedric Williams.
Most of the time when you're a running quarterback like a Henry Burris or a Kerry Joseph in Saskatchewan, your average is up around 7 or 8. Kevin Glenn's average is around 3 yards per carry, so you don't see as much. Kevin Glenn will move the pocket to try and throw it, but he picks up a first down and surprises the Calgary defense.
So a first down, the ball on the Calgary 15-yard line. And here's Roberts on the misdirection. And he is surrounded, and he'll be nailed for a loss. Charles Roberts dropped for a loss of 2. And so far, they've held him in check on the first 3 carries.
Yeah, they have, but that's often what happens in games when you have a good running back in the game, that the defense will be ready for him. You see Charles Roberts with that little Statue of Liberty almost play to get him to the outside and try and get him in space. But the Calgary defense rallies and get more than just one hat on the ball, because one hat is not going to bring down Charles Roberts.
Canad Williams with the tackle, the first Stampeder to be the Defensive Player of the Week for the Stamps this season. 2nd and 12. Glenn, catch, touchdown. Terrence Edwards, the leading receiver of the league, has his 9th major of the season.
And that was textbook from Terrence Edwards. Fundamentally sound. Terrence Edwards comes back to the football, extends and catches the football with his hands. He comes underneath of Brian Clark, goes up with tremendous courage because that's that danger zone, and steps into the end zone. Technically perfect from Terrence Edwards.
Only the 2nd time this year the Bombers have scored on their opening possession. 7 plays, 57 yards, and a touchdown catch by Terrence Edwards. Nothing cold about Terrence Edwards, his 5th touchdown in the last 6 games. The man who leads the Canadian Football League in receiving yards just went over 1,200 when he went over the end zone.
Well, it was perfect play for Terrence Edwards that took advantage of Milt Stegall clearing out some open area for him on the touchdown.
There's Joffrey Reynolds all down at the 32-yard line. Take another look at the Bombers' opening score.
Well, when you're a future Hall of Famer, you draw some attention. Milt Steagall's going to come straight through like this, and he's going to open up the area underneath for Terrence Edwards to come across. Watch how it opens up as Milt Stegall, number 85, goes down the field. He draws that attention. He freezes some defensive backs across the board. Terrence Edwards takes advantage of that and comes back to the football, catches it with his hands, steps into the end zone.
So let's see how the Stamps respond with Ben Sankey at quarterback. And here's Joffrey Reynolds. Try the right side, Doug Brown amongst the tacklers for the Bombers as we set this Sankey-led Stamp offense.
Henry Burris with the problem in his non-throwing shoulder will watch this one tonight, so Sankey will work with Reynolds in the backfield. Offensive line with Rob Lazio still up at center, and a receiving core that's been the same for most of the year, with Thelwell, the 5th receiver, having a breakout game, and 3 receivers very close to 1,000 there. And there's Rob Lazio at center for the Calgary Stampeders.
Couple for Reynolds. 2nd and 8. 2 tight ends in. And time for Sankey, and this one almost picked off. It's caught instead. Nick Lewis took it away from Sam Young.
Well, how many times have we seen the strength of Nick Lewis and talked about how strong of a receiver Nick Lewis is? In fact, defensive backs are reluctant to be physical with a receiver like Lewis because of his hand strength, his arm strength, his upper body strength, his ability to push off and get open. And there, he just wrestled the ball out of Sam Young's hands.
That's my ball, he said, and now he's within 2 of 1,000 yards on his season. Play action, Sankey rolls, pressure from Charlton. Sankey gets it away, and it's incomplete. Intended for Kenyon Rambo.
Well, it was a front seven for the Winnipeg Blue Bombers that was completely taken out of the game by the offensive line of the Calgary Stampeders a week ago. They would like to remedy that situation here tonight. Tom Canada leads the group with 12 sacks. Up front, Jerome Haywood back in the lineup, the interior of that defensive line. Baron Simpson, the run stopper in the middle, amongst the league's leaders, tied with Zeke Moreno with 98 tackles. And in the secondary, Kyrie St-Bear, Jerome Bolden out of the lineup at corner for Greg Moss as a replacement.
2nd and 10, and both Sankey passes very close to being picked off so far. And now Ben Sankey pulls it down, puts his head down across midfield. Baron Simpson with now a league-leading 99th tackle stops Sankey from getting to the first down stick.
Yeah, and I know there's probably fans wondering why, after Henry Burris throws for 401 yards and 5 touchdowns, practices with the scout team during the week, is not playing in this game. There is still concern that Henry Burris' injury could crop up and catch this football team down the stretch. They feel that their spot in the playoffs is basically where it's going to be. 3rd place in the West.
Burke Dales with the punt. Albert Johnson near the sidelines. And he's brought down at the 25-yard line. There's Dwayne Carpenter on the top. Encouraging start for Kevin Glenn as the Bombers try and shake this mini slump. And in the last 4 games, they've gone 1-3 and just 24 first-half points. But for the second time this season, they have a touchdown on the opening drive, and Glenn goes back to work. And Stiegel has one bounce off his hands. Incomplete. Julian Battle, closest Calgary defender.
You know, Kevin Glenn has shown some jump to the step of this offense in his leadership role, and the Calgary Stampeders on defense have to now respond to that intensity from the Winnipeg Blue Bomber offense. And this is the side of the football that has struggled a little bit this year. They've, in the midseason, fired their defensive coordinator, Denny Crehan. Casey Crehan, his son, has moved into that position. They've changed from a 34 to a 43 defense, all of which makes it that much more of a challenge.
2nd and 10. Glenn and Roberts drops the ball. Back-to-back drops. And it's a 2-and-out for the Bomber offense.
Now a little bit of both drops and no excuses for Charles Roberts or Milt Stiegel. They'll catch that 9 out of 10 times. But again, the fact that Tom Higgins, the Calgary Stampeder head coach, is deciding to go with Ben Sankey does not change the challenge that faces this defense in Calgary. They have to play better down the stretch if they want to make a run in the playoffs. They know it. They'll have their hands full tonight because it looks like Glenn's in a groove early.
Rob Bakula had to field that on the hop, and kicks to Winnipeg native Marcus Howell. And Howell finds a crease and hurdles across the 50-yard line before he's brought down by Fred Reed. 16 on the return. Ben Sankey, the somewhat surprise starter for the Stamps tonight. With more on that, let's go inside the huddle with another former Stamp quarterback, Danny McManus.
Chris, you're absolutely right. It is a surprise to see Ben Sankey out there. Henry Burris would love to be out there. Ben Sankey, this is his audition to be an insurance policy. That's basically what he is. If Henry Burris goes down, Ben Sankey has to be ready. He's only been with his ball club for 3 weeks. He needs to learn the offense. Coach Higgins gives him every opportunity to get as many plays as he can tonight.
Good field position to start for Ben Sankey. Off the left side, Joffrey Reynolds. Boy, the run game going nowhere for either team so far in this first quarter.
Yeah, you know, there is a risk involved with this, and we've talked about this time of year many times. Henry Burris has been so hot through the last 10 games. Huge when he came back and threw for 401 after missing 2 games due to injury. So there is a risk that when you rest your quarterback, you take him out of that groove and he gains some rust that he has to get off when he returns. Now, he didn't show that when he returned the first time. I think that influenced Tom Higgins' decision here tonight.
2nd and a little more than 10. They go on the ground, and Reynolds will be stopped. There's Jerome Haywood back in the lineup.
But the other side of the coin, Chris, is that it's a safe and smart decision to make sure that Henry Burris is as healthy as he can possibly be when they head into the playoffs. And that's really what this comes down to. And I think next week you will see Henry Burris back in the lineup.
It is a decision that is aided by their spot in the standings. 5 points out of second with only 3 games left. 4 points in the tiebreaker ahead of Edmonton. So it looks like they're stuck in third, so they don't want to risk anything. I personally think it risks Henry Burris' chance to be the outstanding player in the CFL, but that's another issue and maybe not a primary concern for the Calgary Stampeders. As Albert Johnson's tossed out of play, we'll take a timeout in Winnipeg. Stampeders winners last Sunday. They won 5 of the last 6 meetings against the Bombers. Winnipeg has struck first in this game. Charles Roberts exploding into the secondary all the way up to the 51-yard line, and suddenly the running game is on track. 28 yards straight up the middle.
Well, they're pretty happy to have Bobby Kahn back at center, and he is the guy who's going to start things out in the middle right here, because that's where Charles Roberts hits it. He hits it right down Main Street. Brian Clark over pursues. Kahn takes him right out of the play, and away goes Charles Roberts for his first big gain of the night.
Now remember last year, the last regular season game, it was still undecided. Would it be Roberts or Reynolds to win the rush title? And Charles Roberts in that game ran 151 yards to cement his second consecutive rushing title. And going head-to-head with Joffrey Reynolds here again. There's an injured Stampeder on the field, so we'll take a timeout here in Winnipeg. I'll tune into TSN tomorrow night for more Wendy CFL on TSN action. We'll be in Vancouver as the Edmonton Eskimos take on the BC Lions. Live coverage begins at 9:30 Eastern, 6:30 Pacific. Stefan Lefors nearly staged the upset last week.
A mathematical chance for the Edmonton Eskimos, and they are clinging to that. But they'll have to win in BC.
And cheering for the Bombers tonight. Here's Kevin Glenn and overthrowing Stiegel by about 5 yards.
Well, just another challenge for defensive coordinator Tim Burke, the new defensive coordinator of the Calgary Stampeders, working with Casey Crehan with that defense after the firing of Denny Crehan. And he has had all kinds of challenges, including changing the entire structure of the defense. And that's not easy. I mean, you go from a 34 to a 43 when you consider Tom Higgins built this team around the concept of a 34 with linebackers being the emphasis point in a 34. In a 43, it changes completely.
Charles Roberts seemed to be confused about where to line up there. He started as the wideout and then shifted back when he got some instruction from the bench, and it ended up an incomplete pass for Roberts. And that will end the Winnipeg drive.
Yeah, the Winnipeg Blue Bombers have been doing more of this. They've been moving Charles Roberts from the backfield and making him a receiver. And I think what the criticism from some of the fans here in Winnipeg has been with this football team is that if you're going to move him out, throw him the ball. You've seen Kevin Glenn throw him the ball, at least throw it in his direction a couple of times early tonight.
Makula with a high pump, wind at his back, and Marcus Howell lets it bounce, and this will go into the end zone and out for a single point. Not what Pakula wanted. There is a flag on the play. So we'll hold off. 72-yard kick and a holding call against Calgary. And Barron Simpson getting the options.
Very good decision by Marcus Howell to allow that ball to hit the turf and bounce through the end zone. But it has been an interesting kicking situation here in Winnipeg with Rob Pakula and Troy Westwood. And that's not what Pakula wanted.
Holding, Calgary number 6 will apply the penalty from the 10-yard line back half the distance. It's first down at the 5-yard line, no point.
So it's remained 7-0, and the Bombers end up with exactly what they wanted.
Yeah, worked out. And that's a bit of a break for Rob Pakula, who was in a kicking contest with Troy Westwood to see who would play here this evening in Week 15.
So the Stamps back at their 5-yard line. Reynolds the lone setback, and it is Joffrey Reynolds, and he's going nowhere. Swarm there again. Doug Brown quickly. Barron Simpson in support, and the teeth of that defensive line bolstered by the return of Jerome Haywood.
So a shot there of George Cortez, the offensive coordinator, who is clearly early in this game trying to take some pressure off of Ben Sankey. He's the guy who will signal in some, if not all, of the calls to Sankey, but trying to take some of the pressure off him by giving the ball as much as he can to Joffrey Reynolds.
So 2nd and 9 as they try and move it away from their own goal line. And that pass is caught. Nick Lewis goes up and brings it down in front of Kelly Malvo, who was telling us yesterday how difficult it is to play against these very physical Calgary slots.
Yeah, they are physical, and the key for Calgary on offense on plays like that, to get the ball to the guys that they need to in those receiving core, is to control Tom Canada on the defensive line for the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. You see Joffrey Reynolds on the double team there with Tom Canada, with Garrett Jones. They're going to try to double up Tom Canada to keep him out of the face of Ben Sankey.
4th straight 1,000-yard season for Nick Lewis with that catch. And here is Reynolds. And brought down on the play by Kyrus Hebert, the safety.
But you're absolutely right, Chris, when you talk about the strength of the receiving core with the Calgary Stampeders. This is the catch that puts Nick Lewis over 1,000 yards for a first down. And Kelly Malvo talking about how difficult it is to get up and get physical on receivers that are as strong as a guy like Nick Lewis, because he can win that physical battle and gain separation because he can push you away.
2nd and 5. Here comes the pressure and a completion. Kenyon Rambo has the catch and another first down. So Sankey with some very valuable first down completions.
Well, the last time that the Calgary Stampeders had 3,000-yard receivers, which they may have this year, was back in 2000. Travis Moore, Mark Boerichter, Alan Pitts did it that year.
Jermaine Copeland and Kenyon Rambo closing in. 3 receivers in the top 11, 5 Calgary receivers in the top 21. As Reynolds again tries the heart of that Winnipeg defense and gets stacked up. Maybe 3.
No, this offense has not been the area of concern for the Calgary Stampeders and their fans. Joffrey Reynolds, one of the premier running backs in the league. George Cortez has a system now that Ben Sankey and, more importantly, Henry Burris is on the same page with. You can see the 1,000-yard season again for Joffrey Reynolds. That's not been their concern. Their concern has been on the other side of the ball.
Reynolds with 95 yards last Sunday against the Bombers. 2nd and 7. Sankey has time and a completion to Rambo, but he's drilled by Sam Young. And the gain will be just 4, and they'll be short of a first down. However, it was a drive that started at their 5, so they did a good job of getting away from their own goal line.
Yeah, and then again a formation to help Ben Sankey and to keep the D-line at bay for the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, and that's that tight end formation from George Cortez. And he's trying to work Ben Sankey, who, like Danny McManus said earlier, would be a nice insurance policy for this Calgary team in the playoffs should Henry Burris get hurt in a playoff game.
You saw Albert Johnson back. Johnson 6th in all-purpose yards. And he takes the Dale's punt at his 26. Randy Chevrier, the long snapper, one of the first men down for the Stampeders. Well, we'll talk a lot about receivers tonight. A lot of them in and around 1,000 yards.
As a former DB, this just makes your skin crawl. Yeah, that's a pretty good core both sides when it doesn't matter who has the football in this game, because you get Terrence Edwards, Milt Stegall, and Derek Armstrong. Stegall and Armstrong tonight will move into that 1,000-yard category. And the last time that happened for the Winnipeg Blue Bombers was a long time ago, 1993 as a matter of fact.
Play action to Roberts, they'll swing it out, Manuel Wilson has it, and Wilson with a straight arm up near midfield. And if he beat Dwayne Carpenter, he might have been gone. But it's a 17-yard Bomber play on the final snap of the opening quarter. Bombers lead by a touchdown after 15 minutes. First quarter stats brought to you by Rona, the Canadian how-to people.
Bombers wanted an answer for last week's performance against Calgary in Calgary. I think they've shown a little of that in the first quarter with 6 first downs. Not a real surprise the Stampeders are at 3 with Ben Sankey still trying to find his way.
At a 57-yard touchdown drive. Interesting note on that, 41 yards on second down plays. So Kevin Glenn was sharp when he had to be. And you're talking about 93 and those 3 receivers. Who were they again?
Gerald Wilcox, Gerald Elfin, 2 big tight end type of receivers, and David Williams in 1993. And the quarterback...
Well, I was going to say, with receivers like that, anybody could have quarterbacked.
Pretty much. Yeah. You could put anybody back there at that position. But I believe it was Matt Dunnigan.
Ah, Dunnigan. Yes, that's right. Played in the league for a while, didn't he?
Yeah, he was a pretty good one.
Back to work goes Kevin Glenn. And overthrowing Adam Eckert, who was well covered on the play. Cedric Williams in coverage. Eckert into the lineup with the injury to R.J. Franklin, who has a shoulder problem. Adam Eckert, a Winnipeg product.
You know, and Kevin Glenn has a point to make, I think, in this game here tonight, personally, and as he leads this team. One, that they can snap out of this 2-game losing streak. That's first and foremost. But the other is his stats have slipped over the last 4 games, and he wants to improve them in a big way to show guys he still is the front runner for outstanding player.
See what they do with this second down play. 2nd and 10. Charles Roberts has it go in and out of his hands as he reached back for the ball, and Neil Ternofsky with a jolt on Charles Roberts.
When you look at how Kevin Glenn started this season with 69.5% of his passes being complete, averaging 303 a game, and look at the touchdown interception. In the last 4, that has dropped significantly. Now, I will say this about Kevin Glenn. He has had to come back from behind in 3 of those 4 games in a big way. 9 points to the BC Lions, 20 points to the Toronto Argonauts. He's had to come from behind. That will force you to make decisions with the ball that you might not normally have made. So it's not giving him an alibi, but Kevin Glenn has had different circumstances of late.
Boy, Pakula just got that away and sails it out of bounds. That will be a penalty against the Bombers. Stampeders, I'm a little surprised, have asked the Bombers to re-kick after just a 20-yard punt by Pakula. He has to deal with the wind. See if he gets away a better kick. He does. And this is fielded by Marcus Howell, and he won't get back till about the 30. So they lost about 6 yards on that request to have Pakula do it again.
And maybe the wind was part of the thought process for Tom Higgins in making the decision, but it is the choice of the receiving team if the ball is kicked out of bounds between the 20s. It is the option of the receiving team to decide whether or not to take the ball there, which would have been the 36, or to make the kicking team do it again, and they lost 6 yards because of the decision this time.
That time Pakula, a 46-yard punt. So at the 30, Ben Sankey goes to work. 5 receivers out. And Sankey guns it downfield, and look at the readjustment by Jermaine Copeland to get to the ball.
Well, a nice composure in the pocket for Ben Sankey, who showed the confidence in his quarterback and Jermaine Copeland to the left of your screen to throw it up there when he was well covered. He throws it just to the outside shoulder, basically throwing Jermaine Copeland open there on David Bush, and a little slight push off by Copeland, the veteran. He opens himself up.
Couple of touchdown catches last week for Copeland, 11th in the league in receiving, and a 32-yard catch there, which gets him 135 away from 1,000. Sankey looking for a block, and is taken down by Cam Hall. So Sankey's taken off a couple of times so far.
Well, after last week's win where Henry Burris threw for 401 yards and got the receivers, this receiving core, and Jermaine Copeland going again. There's Copeland from a week ago, and again, David Bush is the guy he works on primarily in the secondary for the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. So a big game for him, and this is something that I know Calgary fans are pretty excited about, is their offense, their receiving core, and of course their starting quarterbacks play.
2 of the 5 touchdown passes from Henry Burris last week, 2nd and 7. And another completion to Jermaine Copeland working against David Bush, and another Calgary first down.
Timing pattern, and this is another good sign for Calgary fans that Ben Sankey is on time with his receiving core this early in the process, because as he will tell you, Ben Sankey himself, that practice reps are very different than game reps, but as Copeland opens up and turns outside, the ball arrives.
You know, when you consider that he has been here about 3 weeks, he looks remarkably sharp. 262 yards and a half against Saskatchewan. And now looking downfield, and that pass incomplete. Looking again for Copeland, this time with Kelly Malvo in coverage.
2 receivers got pretty close together there. Jermaine Copeland was one of them. I think Kenyon Rambo was the other, and as they tried to clear for each other, they got kind of crossed up. Watch Copeland in this one-on-one on Malvo. See, there's Kenyon Rambo. That's too close to have receivers, and it allows Kelly Malvo to read the play quickly and be able to jump in there.
Ben Sankey brought back to the CFL by Wally Buono, who he played for with the Stamps back in 2000, 2001. He was in the Lions camp first this year, looking downfield, and there is Copeland once again. On the money to Jermaine Copeland.
Well, a little different throw, even though both throws to Copeland ended up on the sideline. This one a little different in that Ben Sankey moves around and buys some time, because you can see how long that took to develop for Jermaine Copeland, and it was the wide side of the field, so that takes even that much more time for him to get open, but Sankey held in there.
All 3 catches on this drive, 59 yards for Jermaine Copeland. First down, Joffrey Reynolds. And Reynolds upended by Barron Simpson, who hits 100 yards, or 100 tackles on the year for the 3rd time in his career. Let's check back in with Danny McManus.
Chris and Glenn, you're seeing what Ben Sankey wants to do. Get rid of the ball quickly. He's always had a quick release, and he moves well in the pocket. Glenn, you talked about him buying a little time to give him that ball some air to Copeland down in this area where he's at now. Ben's always had that ability to move around the pocket, buy that extra second, wait for the receiver to get open.
Of course, we know where he learned that quick release. That was as the understudy to Danny McManus, 2004 in Hamilton. 2nd down and 10, looking into the corner, looking for Copeland, who can't bring it down. Working again against Bush with some safety help from Kyrus Hebert. That quick release from you, Danny?
I don't know if he got it from me. I think one thing he learned was if you have the football, guys can hit you. So I'll hurry up and get rid of it.
That he learned from you.
He's always been that. He's always talking about being a sponge and taking in as much as he can. And that's what he's doing with the Calgary Stampeders offense. Trying to learn as much as he can so he can be valuable to the Stampeders when it's playoff time.
The Stampeders were staying in our same hotel for this trip, and I saw Ben Sankey walking through the halls with his playbook open and his nose buried in it.
From the 25-yard line, Sandro DeAngelis put Calgary on the board after that impressive Sankey march. Good to see Abi Khan back in the lineup, just his 5th start of the year. With more on him, here's Sean Churchill.
Thank you very much, Chris. Yeah, this is the 2nd comeback for Abi Khan this season. He missed the first 8 games because of that viral infection, then missed the last 2 because of knee surgery that resulted in 70% of his meniscus taken out. I talked to him about his knee. He says it feels great, but maybe in the future he could have problems, because without that meniscus, it's bone on bone in that knee. It may result in, well, a knee replacement or something more, guys.
Nothing wrong with Charles Roberts' knees. Another big run by Roberts, 26 yards on that carry. When did we start working for the Discovery Channel?
Yeah, that was just gross. But Abi Khan has been a big part of this offensive line, opening some holes in the middle, because Abi Khan gets the key block again in the 2nd big run of this game for Charles Roberts. Both those big runs going right down the middle. both because of blocks from Abi Khan.
And now Kevin Glenn on the roll and step out at the 40-yard line. So we've seen Kevin Glenn pull it down a couple of times. He's been a little more aggressive. I think it's the most we've seen him run since he got the knee nick in Hamilton a few weeks back.
Oh, hey, there's been a lot of people all year long talk about Kevin Glenn as the front runner for outstanding player. That has disappeared over the last couple of weeks. People have thought that his stock has started to fall, and he is trying to prove a point, and I think he's doing that in that first half, not only for him, but for the Bombers in general.
So a first down at the Calgary 38-yard line. And a quick look in there, and it's complete. And the catch made by Derek Armstrong. And again, Armstrong, one of those Winnipeg receivers closing in on 1,000. He needs 14 more after that 7-yard catch.
You know, this is a game where the two maybe front runners for the outstanding player are both here tonight. Well, we won't see Henry Burris likely in the game unless something happens injury-wise to Ben Sankey, but Kevin Glenn certainly has been all year. And over the last 10 games, even though he's missing tonight, I still think Henry Burris has got to be a front runner in the West for outstanding player. Just amazing 10-game run for Burris.
This play doesn't get off. Joe Smith still very much a candidate for the
No
BC
question.
Lions. And Kerry Joseph really thrust himself into this battle with his performance
Winnipeg.
last week in Hamilton as the Bombers call timeout. This race still very much wide open, and I think it really hurts Henry Burris. And again, it's not his high priority, but the fact that Burris can't add to his stats here is certainly not going to help his cause.
Yeah, no, I mean, it doesn't, but I think he has to still be considered, and you have to consider that if this was a playoff game, Henry Burris would be playing in it. And he still is an outstanding player candidate because of it. You consider his season. In his 73 starts, Henry Burris is putting together two of his best ever games have been in 2007. He's averaging close to 350 a game in the last 10.
Bombers a great group for the 2nd and 3 call, and look at Roberts. Kick outside, has the first down. It looks like it could be a big night for Charles Roberts running against this Calgary 4-3.
Yeah, and it really is all Charles Roberts because the play is designed to go into the middle and is to follow between center and guard, but he bounces it outside on his own. He shows what tremendous vision he has and gets outside of Julian Battle, the halfback, and gets that first down all by himself.
Well, he has just reclaimed the CFL rushing lead. Of course, Joe Smith still to go this week. But Charles Roberts now has moved back ahead of Joe Smith. That pass delivered high for O'Neal Wilson. Incomplete. But at one point, Charles Roberts was 153 yards behind Smith. He's reeled him back in, and that'll be an interesting race down the stretch for the rushing title as Roberts goes after his 3rd consecutive CFL rushing crown.
Well, you're right, and Joe Smith, you know, his numbers have fallen off the last couple of games. I'm sure the BC Lions would like to reestablish him tomorrow night against the Edmonton Eskimos. But in the meantime, Charles Roberts can add to his lead.
2nd and 10, 4 receivers wide side, and they'll throw from the option to the weak side. Oh, what a hit. Dwayne Carpenter with the jolt on Roberts, short of the first down at the 15.
Well, he shows Dwayne Carpenter that he can play the free safety spot, come up in the line of scrimmage, then drop out of there. There he is right there. He's going to show like he's going to blitz. He drops out like he's going to be in pass coverage. Then he steps up in this option, and he comes up on the pitch man, Charles Roberts, puts a pretty nice hit right in his midsection and topples him over.
Big time hit by Carpenter. And Charles Roberts, not a big guy, but he's shown us such durability over his 7 years. And Pakula on to try and restore the 7-point Bomber lead. Pakula splits the uprights, and it's 10-3 Winnipeg. Tom Higgins, Stampeders trailing 10-3. Just over 7 minutes remaining in the first half as Bakula kicks it off. There's Joffrey Reynolds on the return. He's hauled down at the 48-yard line. Well, again, it is Ben Sankey and not Henry Burris starting for Tom Higgins tonight. The head coach told us about his quarterbacking situation.
He is a little bit sore, and we're not having him do as much out on the field, but it's probably more important to make sure that we have somebody who's in the backup role know what's going on as far as our offense is concerned. So we're going to give Ben as many reps as he needs to make sure that should anything happen to Henry, he's ready to play.
And so far, Sankey has moved the ball. He's got another completion here. Nick Lewis the catch in front of Robert Bean.
Yeah, you know, lots of things going into this decision for Tom Higgins. He mentioned a couple there. You know, Ben Sankey, you mentioned, Chris, has only been in Calgary a couple of weeks. When you look at what Barrick Neely didn't do in the game against the BC Lions, that had to be of concern for Tom Higgins and the coaching staff if they happen to lose a guy who's playing hurt in Henry Burris in a playoff game. That's all part of why we're seeing Ben Sankey here tonight and not Henry Burris.
Second and a couple, and they're going to throw out of this situation. And now they'll dump it off. The open man is Reynolds with the first down. Gavin Walls from his defensive end position with the tackle.
And I have to say right now that I've been very impressed with the play of Ben Sankey to this point.
You know, he looks like the guy who actually had the starting job in Calgary back in 2001 to start the year, and he was hurt early in that season. Marcus Crandall took over, and well, the Stampeders ended up winning the Grey Cup.
He's playing against a Winnipeg defense right now that was stung a week ago and wanted to make a point tonight.
To the air, gets it away and overthrows Ryan Thowell, who had the big 70-yard tightrope touchdown last week at McMahon.
Part of the success of Calgary a week ago against this Winnipeg defense, I have to give credit to George Cortez, the offensive coordinator for it, and that it was by formation and how he set up tight end sets where Joffrey Reynolds became a tight end, or he'd bring in receivers to become tight ends and try to nullify the effectiveness of the front seven of the Winnipeg Blue Bombers defense, which is their strength. Their strength is the front seven. Their weakness has been the secondary.
Jerome Haywood comes out. Sam Young's an extra DP on this passing situation, and the play doesn't get off. Whistled down with a penalty marker.
So that sets up the chess match between George Cortez and defensive coordinator Greg Marshall for the Winnipeg Blue Bombers.
Calgary number 50. 5-yard penalty. Repeat, second down.
Jay McNeil, this was an issue last week. There were 7 procedure calls against that offensive line.
And they will go with that tight end set up front to help the offensive line try and take Tom Canada out of the game, take Jerome Haywood and Doug Brown out of the game by adding more blocking help. That puts the game on the secondary for the Winnipeg defense. Last week, they didn't respond. See if they do this week.
So it's 2nd and 15 for Sankey. Out of the backfield comes Reynolds. He has the catch and gets away from Cam Hall. Oh, he left Cam Hall in his wake and has a first down.
That is a beauty. That is sweet. That's what you call that from Joffrey Reynolds, getting out of the backfield like that. He's coming and running the route. He's the check down man for Ben Sankey. Some coverage downfield, so that Bomber secondary responded there. But watch the move in the open field by Joffrey Reynolds. Well, that's just sick. That's a beautiful move in the open field to just freeze Cam Hall. And Cam Hall has to go back there, and he's got to pick up his shoes and spat and everything else that he left on the field because Joffrey Reynolds, sweet in the open field.
Needed 15, and it looks like he got 15 and the length of the football.
That is a beauty. Two tremendous running backs in this game. We've seen Charles Roberts on the other side and Joffrey Reynolds, and it's that time of year.
Yes, and it's interesting that both at times this year, people were saying, why aren't they giving these guys the ball?
I was one of them.
Well, Sankey's got them driving again. The wind at the back of this Stampeder offense in the second quarter. And plenty of time. Brett Ralph. And what a nice move that is back inside for Brett Ralph, who had a season-high 117 yards receiving last week at McMahon against this Bomber D.
Yeah, leading receiver for the Calgary Stampeders last week when Henry Burris threw that 400-yard game. And this is a tough throw for Ben Sankey. He wasn't able to step into it because of the timing, so he really strong-armed that to the wide side out, which is about a 50-yard throw on the Canadian Football League field.
19 for the native of Raymond, Alberta. And the ball is on. Winnipeg 19, first down. Releasing out of the backfield is Reynolds again, and Tom Canada is there to make the stop. George Cortez was telling me today how much he admires Tom Canada. When he was at the University of California, Tom Canada was a star defensive end, and he said he wasn't the most talented guy on their defense, but he was the heart and soul of that defense. And he said there's a guy you'd want on your team anywhere in this league, and Canada just showed you why with a pretty good play off the defensive end.
Full speed, all the time, every play. That's what you get from Tom Canada.
Limited the gain to just one, so it's 2nd and 9. Sankey with some time now running out of it. He escapes. Then Sankey to the corner and throws incomplete. Was looking for Kenyon Rambo.
Easy for us up here to say that he could have run for the first down after the fact because the game's a little different when you're way up here in the booth. But he does such a great job, Ben Sankey, of avoiding the rush. Looked like Doug Brown had him right there for a sack. Tom Canada, he had a crack at him, and I think if Ben Sankey will look at this tape, he'll say, I should have maybe run for a touchdown or at the very least a first down, but he was looking to throw.
Yes, it did look like that field opened up for him. But again, DeAngelis comes on to attempt this time a 24-yarder with Brett Ralph holding. And Sandro is 2 for 2 on the game. His 26th field goal of the season. And it makes it a 4-point game. So 3:02 remaining first half. No touchdowns for Calgary, but this is a guy that has been in camp for less than a month. You've got to think pretty good production for Ben Sankey under the circumstances.
It really has been. He, in talking to him yesterday and seeing him in the halls, was very confident despite the fact that he hasn't had a lot of time in the Calgary playbook. He felt like because of the weapons he has around him, because of the coaching staff and George Cortez, that he felt that he had all the tools in the toolbox to make this offense run smoothly.
Should be the final play before the 3-minute warning. Hand off to Roberts, and going nowhere this time. Tossed back by the new outside linebacker, Trey Young. We'll take a timeout. .243 left first half. And the Bombers looking at second down. And 14. Roberts the screen pass, and he'll be dropped at the 35. Short of the first down. Standing by, Wendy's at the half. We'll rejoin Dave, Matt, Jock, and Schultze with their take on what they've seen in the first half. Matt told you that he thought it'd be a big night for Charles Roberts. And Roberts with 67 yards rushing so far in the game.
After that first drive, though, Kevin Glenn's offense hasn't looked quite as good. The Calgary defense has responded in this second quarter.
Nicola kicking into the wind. Howell fields it at his 36. And the former Bomber is ridden out at the 41-yard line by Jason Nugent. Ben Sankey back to work. Here's Reynolds out of the backfield once again, and Barron Simpson had him tracked and wraps him up, tosses him down. And Simpson, in that interesting race, was the leading tackler in the league. Came into the game tied with Zeke Moreno of the Hamilton Ticats. Well, Mike's had at least 3 tackles in this first half.
Conversation with him yesterday was interesting. I said, well, what happened last week in the Calgary game? He said, you cannot give up big plays against a good offense. And he said, every time we built a little momentum, we gave up a big play. That's what we want to try and eliminate in the rematch in Winnipeg.
Over half Calgary's yards last week, 259 yards came on 8 plays. Sankey hit as he throws, and the ball falls incomplete. As the heat got on Sankey, and that tweaked his arm, and Barron Simpson led the charge.
He did. He came on a stunt from the linebacking core, and Barron Simpson did lead this charge from the linebacking spot right in the middle. Ben Sankey steps up into the pocket, and there's Hall to the right of your screen, who is also involved. He goes right through that C gap to the outside. Gap between the tackle and the tight end. He shoots that gap. Barron Simpson on the opposite side, and they meet at Ben Sankey.
Yeah, the will linebacker, you saw Cam Hall bat that ball as Sankey was starting to release. So Dales kicks it to Johnson, who drops it and then drops right on it. A 43-yard kick. Back in Winnipeg, Kevin Glenn going to the air. And that pass almost picked off, but a flag down as it was intended for Milt Stegall. And was he interfered with by Dwayne Carpenter?
Little rotation from the Calgary defense, so that was safety Dwayne Carpenter, I believe, over there in that flat area or inside curl area for Kevin Glenn. Really not an open receiver, and Carpenter felt that he timed it up.
Calgary number 29. That'll be a 10-yard penalty. First down.
Does make a little contact just before the ball arrived.
So 91 seconds remaining in this first half that started so well for Winnipeg, but the lethargy we've seen in the last 4 games still very much in effect for the Bombers, certainly in the first half of each of those games. And that pass draws another flag. Armstrong stretched out for it, and Brandon Browner says, me?
Derek Armstrong made an adjustment to his route here because he was designed to just run an out to the sideline with O'Neal Wilson layering over the top from the backside.
Pass interference. Calgary number 27. First down at the point of the foul.
When Derek Armstrong breaks out of his original route, you see the 2 receivers, O'Neal Wilson there and Armstrong together. That's because Derek Armstrong broke out, and when he did, that's when Browner grabbed him. It was just before that. He's pleading innocent now, but he did grab him when he turned out of his original pass route.
That's a 19-yard penalty and a first down for the Bombers at their 50. The bunch formation to the wide side. They look across the middle, and there's Adam Eckert with his first catch of the season. Let's check in with Danny McManus.
Chris, you're seeing Kevin Glenn going against the wind. Some of his throws are high, just trying to throw it a little too hard to fight against that wind. Also, the Stampeders defensive line are really getting into that Winnipeg offensive line and pushing those guys back into Kevin's uncomfort zone, making them very uncomfortable there in the pocket. Back to you guys.
Well, Danny, he is 6 for 13, 82 yards. We've noticed at least 3 drops. And that pass is picked off well behind the intended receiver, and Kranz Clemens has his first interception of the year. Brought down by Armstrong, but that is the 8th interception in the last 4.5 games tossed by Kevin Glenn.
And Danny McManus is bang on, because it looked to me that Kevin Glenn was uncomfortable and threw this ball earlier than he wanted to throw because of the push from the defensive line running a stunt, because that ball is well off the target and behind the intended receiver. Clemens comes up with the interception, but it's the push up front that makes him uncomfortable. Not that there's a guy pulling him down at the time, but it's just that the pocket has collapsed around him.
Is that what they mean when they say sometimes the quarterback's seeing ghosts? He could feel the pressure even though it wasn't right there. And Sankey feels the heat, and he's going down and dropped it momentarily. But Doug Brown has his first sack in a long time, 5th on the year.
And he has to come a long way to get there. Doug Brown right at the nose in front right here. He'll have to work his way right like that through a double team to get to Ben Sankey. He's coming up the field. He goes outside. Then he has to come around the guard, who's Jay McNeil. He gets up the field and finally gets in the face of Ben Sankey. Resilience from Doug Brown on that play.
Last sack was July 27th. He got off to the hot start with 4 quick sacks. Number 5 was a long time coming, but it was a big one. Sankey, quarterback draw, and look at him get through traffic. And Ben Sankey up to the 50. Almost came up with a first down. 21-yard gain. He'll be a couple of yards short of the first.
That's a long 2 yards if you're Tom Higgins right now. And contemplating a gamble in this situation. Ben Sankey almost gets there. Doug Brown was the guy in the middle of that defense that was trying to fight his way, and he complained a little bit that he was held at the point of attack. Sankey gets just the 2 yards short. But I don't think you've got to punt this football if you're Tom Higgins.
I think you're right with about a half minute to go. Kyrus Hebert made the play from behind to prevent Sankey from reaching the first down stick. And Dales lets the clock run.
Interesting, these last 2 series and the back end of this second quarter, the defensive lines turning it up a notch. Both sides, Calgary, Tom Higgins group, as well as Doug Brown and the defense for the Winnipeg Blue Bombers.
Stampeders ran the clock down and called timeout with 1 second left on the play clock. 15 left on the game clock here in the first half. Burkdale's back in after being benched for a few weeks in place of Duncan O'Mahony, which raised some eyebrows considering that Dales is 3rd in the league in punt average and 2nd in net punting. But a few went into the end zone that the coach wanted out of bounds inside the 20, and he went more for the directional kicker for a time in Duncan O'Mahony. Back to Dales. Albert Johnson letting it bounce. He'll field it on the 13 and draw a no yards call. 5 seconds remaining in this first half.
And at this point in the field, on the field, and this point in the game, Kevin Glenn likely just kneels down and goes in at halftime. The Bombers up by 4.
So in the last 5 games, the Winnipeg Blue Bombers have scored 34 first half points.
Legal block, Winnipeg number 98. Go back half the distance to the goal, first down.
It wasn't no yards, it was actually Gavin Walls called, and they'll just have to move back a little further before, in all likelihood, taking a knee. So that's not a lot of production from a high-powered offense to get games started. So no eye of the tiger since the opening drive for Doug Barry's crew on offense tonight.
No, and their defense gave up some yards as well in that first half to a backup quarterback in Ben Sankey with the Calgary Stampeders. So still some concerns with the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. I'm sure they'll discuss at halftime.
All that said,
they got the lead.
They have the lead as they run the clock out in the opening half here at Canad Inns Stadium after 30 minutes. Bombers with a 10-6 lead. Tom Higgins' crew trying to improve their road record, which is currently 2-5. Last year they were 2-7 away from McMahon.
Well, the other thing with that road record is they'd like to beat a team outside of Alberta on the road because their only 2 road wins were against the Edmonton Eskimos.
But Ben Sankey, in a very short period of time, has become a very nice insurance policy for the Stampeders. They'll get the ball and the wind to start this second half, and Joffrey Reynolds with the kickoff, the turn upended by Kelly Malvo. Great downfield cover by the veteran and former Stampeder Kelly Malvo.
You know, the special teams has been led by Kyrus Hebert for the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, but this is a big tackle by Kelly Malvo, and it gets, the special teams can always set the table. It sets the tone for your team when you come out of the locker room, either to start the game or to start the second half. So Kelly Malvo grabs a little momentum early.
Stamp start at their own 30-yard line. First and 10, Reynolds takes the pitch, left side, and Joffrey Reynolds has 6 to the 36.
You were coming into this game looking at these two quarterbacks with Ben Sankey just a few weeks in Calgary, and the backup, and Kevin Glenn, one of the front runners, if not the front runner for outstanding player. The numbers that you see right in front of you might surprise you a little bit, but Ben Sankey did move the offense. He just didn't come away with touchdowns. Settled for field goals. Kevin Glenn got things going in the very last drive of the first half.
In his last 4 quarters now, Sankey's thrown for 414 yards. And that pass incomplete, intended for Rambo, with the Will linebacker Cam Hall in coverage.
One of the things I like about what I've seen from Ben Sankey in the first half is his decision making. The fact that he is utilizing the offense. He's just taking what the defense has been giving him. You've heard that many, many times, but that just means to be patient. He's dropped the ball off to Joffrey Reynolds a bunch. He's hitting those short crossing routes, the outs to Jermaine Copeland. He's not forcing the ball deep to say, hey, look at me, I've arrived and I can make this thing work with big plays.
Albert Johnson awaits as Burke Hills punts it away. Good high kick. Johnson back at his 24. And he's collared and brought down. Randy Chevrier there again. Well, I said Randy Chevrier collared Albert Johnson. Maybe I should have said horse collared, because that's what they called it.
Yeah, that's what they call it. Horse collar up around the face mask and shoulder pad area.
15-yard penalty enhances the Bombers' field position. That pass sails incomplete from quarterback Kevin Glenn. Another Bomber quarterback standing by with Sean Churchill.
Yes, thank you very much, Chris. Bomber legend Kenny Plain, part of the 1958, 59, 61, and 62 Grey Cup winning teams. Your teams were honored in the past 2 days. What have the past 2 days been like for you?
Well, they've been great number of days. We've got guys in. Dick Thornton come in from the Philippines, if you can believe it. They're from all over North America, the United States, here in Canada, whatever. But I think the final count was up around 42 or 44 the guys got back, and it's been a great couple of days.
But you got what was coming? You got the Grey Cup ring.
We did. You know, it's a project we got working on a little over a year ago to put together, and Leo Ledahowski of the Canad Inns, we got in touch with him, and I tell you, from there it's been all downhill. They're a great organization. They've really looked after us the last couple of days, and more importantly, we got our ring sitting there on that finger, and we thank them for that.
Well, thank you for doing this.
Thank you. It's a pleasure being here, and we'll see if we can hold the lead a little better than 10-6.
Back up to you guys.
Oh, some legends on the field at halftime. People like Plain and Lewis and Thornton, Van Pelt, James, and so many others. Pikula just gets the punt away. The night of nostalgia here in Winnipeg, and our hats off to those great legends and the men that made the ring ceremony possible. That was a dynasty. Cups in 58, 59, 61, and 62 under the leadership of the great Bud Grant.
Yeah, and Bud Grant was here along with Leo Lewis, who Charles Roberts passed this year to become the all-time leading rusher as a Bomber. And, you know, I love to see it, not just the member clubs in the Canadian Football League, but the entire league to continue to honor the great players of the past and recognize what their contribution has been to the history of the Canadian Football League, and there are some legends in that group.
Gilles Leze has been shaken up, so we will take a timeout here early in the second half in Winnipeg. There's Gilles Leze, the former Stampeder, making his way to the Winnipeg bench. Stamps take over on their 36. Sankey, the look into Nick Lewis at the 40-yard line. Well, a reminder that the NFL on TSN continues this Sunday. The Pittsburgh Steelers taking on the Denver Broncos. Coverage starting at 7 o'clock Eastern or Pacific. 4 yards for Nick Lewis, 2nd and 6. Ben Sankey, the MVP of a league that I'd never heard of, the United Indoor Football League. That's where Wally Bono found him and brought him back. Sankey in some trouble, but gets away again and fumbles the ball. Cam Hall with the strip and a pile up for it. Bombers think they've got it. Sankey had the first down, but then Cam Hall knocked the ball out of his hand. And Winnipeg comes up with it, and look who got it. Cam Hall
came all the way back from behind the play to chase down Ben Sankey. Ben Sankey did not see him coming. There's Cam Hall right there, and he continues to chase. Comes from behind. There he comes. Excuse me, that was Canada. Here comes Hall from behind, and Cam Hall comes up with a strip that Ben Sankey didn't even see him from the back, and he just tackles the football.
So a takeaway by the Bomber defense, and they have a first down at the Calgary 47-yard line. Second fumble recovery of the year for the Will linebacker Hall, and there's a completion to Milt Stegall. And Trey Young trying to battle to bring the ball back into Calgary hands, but Stegall hangs on. And Milt has his 10th consecutive 1,000-yard season.
Yes, he does. And if you want to get back in a groove and you're Kevin Glenn, you go to Milt Stegall. He's the inside receiver to the short side of the field there. Little timing throw, and you can see how Kevin Glenn has picked up his pace to get the ball out of his hands quicker.
9th consecutive, his 10th overall. It's been a memorable season for Stegall. Here's Charles Roberts changing direction, but brought down by Gargiulo, who's back in the lineup at defensive end for the Stampeders, his 6th tackle of the year. We talked earlier to Milt about yet another milestone in his grasp.
97, when I got my first 1,000-yard, that was actually the first time in my football career that I had ever had 1,000 yards. Never in high school, never in college, so that was significant to me, the fact that I got it then. But then the fact that I could possibly get my 10th one, it's definitely something big.
143 touchdowns, 10 1,000-yard seasons. The resume grows. Screen, Roberts, and Julian Battle stepped up, but upends Charles Roberts.
You know, interesting listening to Milt Stegall talk about his 1,000-yard season. Of course, Terrence Edwards, leading receiver in the league, coming in. He talked about it too, and a lot of people have been asking him about his great season, and Edwards sits right by Stegall in the locker room, and Stegall would say to him, listen, I've done it before, and last time I checked, it didn't mean that I got a Grey Cup ring on my finger to have 1,000 yards, and that's really what Milt Stegall and Terrence Edwards' goal is. And I think this entire football team's goal is to win one for Milt Stegall in what might be his last year.
Akula will attempt from 40 yards out. This has been an area of concern for the Bombers. And this one is wide. And Marcus Howell dancing around, and will he come out or not? I don't think so. Be a point for Winnipeg and a 5-point lead. The 11-6. For every sack in tonight's game, Purolator donates the quarterback's weight in food to a local food bank. Purolator, the official courier of the CFL, tackling hunger across Canada. Doug Brown making a contribution, the only sack in the game. And the Bombers 3rd in the league in that category.
Winnipeg in striking range of the BC Lions if they can get a couple more tonight on Ben Sankey, who leads that offense out over the ball right now.
Calgary's outstatted. Winnipeg so far betrayal. Here's Reynolds, and he is dropped. There's Tom Canada. Defensive player for the month of September. We're wondering if that kick was by Pakula was blocked. Let's have another look. Brandon Browner.
Yeah, it looked like Brandon Browner, who is right there. Watch how he jumps out of the gym to get up in the air, climb the ladder, and does he get his left hand? This is some kind of vertical jump, folks, because that ball goes right between his hands, and I think he got a piece of it and pushed it wide.
and the truck heard that sound that you hear when a ball is partially blocked. Sankey in trouble, and there's Cam Hall again. Tell you what, Cam Hall, since he got juked by Joffrey Reynolds early, has been a real force in this Winnipeg defense.
Yeah, likely knows that he was going to take some ribbing in the film session no matter what the outcome of this game as the week goes on. So Cam Hall has really turned up his intensity. Once again, he is there to make the play. Remember, it was Cam Hall who stripped Ben Sankey on the previous drive, and Doug Brown creates the havoc at the beginning of the play, fighting again through a double team to force Ben Sankey to step up into Cam Hall's hands.
So a 3rd and 13, and Dales to kick it away. And the Stamps not doing much with the wind here in the 3rd quarter. Johnson at his 36, and there's Browner, the gunner, on special teams down there first to bring down Albert Johnson. Bombers go to work at their own 35-yard line. 4 receivers wide side, and Charles Roberts to the short side with a big hole. And Roberts into the secondary across midfield, and finally down at the 50-yard line as he closes in and may have gone over 100 yards on the game.
Charles Roberts gets the option here to run the ball when he finds the hole, so he will be patient as he bounces to the outside, patient to wait where his blocks are created, and right there is where they are created, so he's got the cutback lane. The first tackler he sees is the safety, Dwayne Carpenter.
Well, he's 2 shy of 100 to be his 4th 100-yard game of the season. It looks like he's on pace for his biggest night of the year. And here he goes. Now he's over 100 and more, stretching down to the 39, close to another first down. Let's go back inside the huddle with Danny McManus.
Chris and Glenn, you're seeing Winnipeg starting to use Charles Roberts running. The defensive line for Calgary Stampeders are shooting the gaps. They're getting upfield and getting into Kevin Glenn's pocket. He's very uncomfortable back there. Only way to slow that down, get Charles Roberts run the football, have those guys looking in the backfield instead of rushing the passer.
Attack the attack. And that's basically getting Charles Roberts to take advantage of the quickness of that D-line that are getting up the field in the gaps, causing problems for Glenn in the passing game. Well, there's your answer, number 1.
Kevin Glenn will put his head down and sneak for the first down. I asked Greg Marshall yesterday, who doesn't run the Calgary defense, but asked him, when you make a change from a 3-4 to a 4-3, what might be vulnerable? And he said, in general, it's tougher to get your run assignments down than your pass coverage assignments. And there was a sense in the Bomber camp that maybe they could get some success with Charles Roberts tonight.
Well, the other thing they do, you know, Shannon James is not a big linebacker. He's at 5'10", 205. They brought Trey Young down. He's not a big linebacker either.
So Roberts' 4th 100-yard game, 108 his best of the season, and that pass short-hopped and incomplete, intended for Milt Stegall.
You know, that's the difference. I think that's also what Greg Marshall was talking to you about, Chris, is that the fact that you go to that 40 defense now for the Calgary Stampeders, they have to make a couple of changes. Trey Young has been their safety, so Tim Burke basically now takes the safety and puts him at linebacker. Shannon James in the other defense was one of those blitzing cover type linebackers. He's not a big guy to stop the run or to take on run blocks from offensive linemen. So when you add that all up, it may show some weakness when you kind of try and run the ball against it.
Saskatchewan ran for 177 2 weeks ago. 2nd and 10. Glenn rolls. Gargiulo's got him. And the pass rush gets to the quarterback. And Gargiulo with his 4th sack in 6 starts this year.
A little bit of a communication error either between the O-line not knowing exactly what the intent was from Kevin Glenn, or Kevin Glenn running past his protection. Gargiulo is right in behind Shannon James here, right up in front of him. Now he gets up in the pocket and then bounces outside, and you can see how Glenn has got away from his protection. He didn't pull up with the football and go back. He got away from it, and that's how Gargiulo got there.
Gargiulo back in for John Siptak in this game. And Pikula to punt with Marcus Howell awaiting at the Calgary 10-yard line. Howell wants it to bounce in the end zone and gets that hop. And will concede the single point. So it's now a 12-6 Bomber lead. Back at Canad Inns Stadium, 4.5 minutes to go, third quarter. It's a 6-point Bomber lead. And out of the backfield, Rob Cote, the Cochrane kid with the catch. And he has 5 yards. Well, when a sports legend is murdered, the investigation hits a snag when the lab loses the body. Watch CSI Miami Monday at 10, 9 Central on CTV. I hope it's nobody we know.
The body goes missing.
The body goes missing. A sports legend.
Wow.
Geez, we've had meniscus in a cup and now a missing body. Second and 5. And Sankey can't hook up with Kenyon Rambo, and Mike Charlton in coverage for the Bombers.
Not easy assignment for Ike Charlton. And Ike Charlton is a linebacker, and for him to be matched up with Kenyon Rambo is not an easy task. He's going to be to the left of your screen, plus the protection is there for Ben Sankey on what is a blitz for Winnipeg, so it's really one-on-one for Ike Charlton with no help anywhere around him, and he's in tremendous position. 7th start for Ike Charlton since returning. Well, the Bombers are happy to have him.
Bombers D stepping up, 14 outs in that fumble recovery in the second half. Albert Johnson, and he's swamped at the 36-yard line. Well, it's been a quiet second half so far. Charles Roberts going to make some noise. And Roberts now does have his best game of the season, and you can tell he's feeling it.
He's feeling it because you can see that he is almost never running to the point of attack. In fact, this time it was, you can see, to the left side of the offensive formation, but he cuts all the way back against the flow. Again, taking advantage, like Danny McMahon has said, of the aggressive attack from the D-line of the Calgary Stampeders.
It's over 100 yards. He has regained the lead rushing in the Canadian Football League from Joe Smith. And he has passed Kelvin Anderson on the all-time rushing list. Now number 5 all-time, with Leo Lewis here to watch.
It's kind of interesting looking coming into this game at Charles Roberts, who's now, like you mentioned, the leader. But as a team, the Bombers ranked 5th coming into this game rushing the football, which was often, if you have the leading running back, you have the leading rushing team.
Yeah, it's a strange stat. Well, the Calgary Stampeders are the number 1 rushing team in the Canadian Football League.
But Henry Burris is 600 yards rushing to really help that total.
Kevin Blood again sneaking for a first down. Well, it's been quite a night with a lot more still to come for Charles Roberts.
Couple early on that he got the great blocking up front. Bobby Kahn has thrown a couple of big blocks, and then he started cutting back against the flow. But it has been a big night.
And no one after this game will say, why don't they give Roberts the ball more? This is probably more a prototypical night for this Bomber offense in that regard, and yet it's the only thing they seem to have going right now, because the pass attack has gone very quiet after the opening drive for a touchdown. Got a problem with the chains, and got the Rona how-to people out to get that fixed up. Well, we mentioned that Charles Roberts has climbed the ladder a little higher in this game. passing the former Stampeder great, who was fun to watch, Kelvin Anderson.
Yeah, you look at that list. I mean, Kelvin Anderson, when I think of that name, I think of just straight consistency. You know, year after year, those 1,000-yard rushing seasons. Johnny Bright, the great acceleration and exciting player that he was. Of course, Damon Allen, the quarterback. And then the two on top, the Pounders.
But the, you know what?
Nothing like a little duct tape.
Yeah, when you need to fix something, get the duct tape out. First down, Bombers. And that ball dropped on the snap from center, and Kevin Glenn didn't want to take any chances, just pounces on it. He'll regroup.
Well, this has been where Kevin Glenn has found the pocket collapsing around him in situations like this where it's 2nd and long, in this case 2nd and 12. Danny McManus has talked about it a couple times tonight, and I think he's bang on. It's that Kevin Glenn, that he's not getting a guy that he has to run away from, but the pocket in general is starting to fold in. It's made him a little uncomfortable in the passing game. This is right what Calgary wants, this situation.
So 2nd and 12. 6 receiver set. Pressure, and underneath the completion. And Terrence Edwards reverses field and is brought down close to the first down. Looks like he may be within inches of that first down chain.
First of all, Kevin Glenn is going to retreat to get the ball out of there because it's full blitz on Kevin Glenn, but a great decision. Look at how he has to retreat to be able to get that ball into the hands of Terrence Edwards. Then he allows his athlete to do the rest. He cuts back against the flow to make it real close here. Recognition from Kevin Glenn on the blitz, and his receivers seeing exactly the same thing.
Mentioned that Edwards leads the league. He said, I was hoping for 1,000 yards. He needed 12, and he does get the first down here. I was hoping to get a 1,000-yard season. I just didn't think I'd be the first one in the league to 1,000. And he is 2nd in catches to his old teammate Ben Cahoon in Montreal. A couple of grabs tonight, a touchdown catch on the opening drive, and now 73 on the season for Terrence Edwards.
And Derek Armstrong needs just 14 more yards, and then the Bomber receiving corps has the hat trick.
3 1,000-yard receivers, Stiegel over tonight, and Charles Roberts again. And runs into Randy Chevrier and Tay George.
You talked about the Calgary defense against the run, and you know, in that last win against the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, they had really turned it up. They only gave up 86 yards rushing last week. In the previous 2 weeks, the weeks they lost, it was 184-277. That has been an area of concern since they made the change to the 4th down lineman, 3 linebackers. They thought they fixed it last week, but Charles Roberts having a pretty good night.
4 for Roberts, 2nd and 6. And a quick roll and a catch by Stiegel. And another Bomber first down. So they're putting things together on the final play of the 3rd quarter. Kevin Glenn has another Winnipeg first down. Third quarter stats are brought to you by Rona, the Canadian how-to people.
You know, sometimes stats are just real hard to figure out. When you look at the first downs at the top of the list and then the time of possessions, they shouldn't be that close in time of possession when you see 18 first downs to 9. But we're seeing a little more of that playoff style of football.
So you're saying with defense and running, it means we're getting near the end of the season.
Yeah, you're seeing the running backs start to emerge more. It's getting cooler out. We're on the prairies. You're seeing the defenses turn it up a notch on the intensity level. So that's what happens around playoff time. It's tougher to score.
We're also seeing Winnipeg put together their best-looking drive since the opening drive of the game.
Yeah, and they need to find some confidence in that offense. Kevin Glenn is using Charles Roberts a lot more in this second half. He's having a big night, but he wants to get confidence in that passing game as well. 1st and 10, they've moved the ball to the Calgary 35. And they go back to Roberts, huge hole into the secondary, and Charles Roberts is down to the 5. Big block by Kyle Koch, the left guard who is going to wash down the defensive line for the Calgary Stampeders. He is right there, number 61, and watch how he will take that defensive line down with him. And then Charles Roberts with the tremendous move in the open field on Trey Young and that little amount of space. That's when you hear people say he can make you miss in a phone booth. That was about the size of a phone booth. He made Trey Young miss, and away he went.
30 yards for Roberts there. 151 on the night. Back to Roberts into the end zone. Charles Roberts has his 60th rushing touchdown of the year.
And he has just fired a warning shot over the bow of Joe Smith's boat in BC for the rushing title, saying, I've taken the lead and I'm trying to pull away.
In fact, he just took a 100-yard lead in the rushing race as he expands the Bombers' lead in this game.
Again, the Bombers up front on that O-line. A lot of slide protection, meaning just sliding across the line of scrimmage laterally and taking the D-line with them and then allowing Charles Roberts to pick his hole.
So 3 short of Mike Pringle's CFL rushing record. Mikula, he had the extra point. He does early 4th quarter. Winnipeg expands the lead. Well, he did most of the damage on the drive, and he capped it. The 5-yard touchdown run, and it's 19-6 for Winnipeg. And the kick gets by John Cornish. The rookie has to go back to pick it up. And out across the 20 before he's nailed by Bear and Adrian Baird. Well, Mike Pringle's rushing touchdown record is certainly in jeopardy. Joe Smith might do it tomorrow, and Charles Roberts is also within reach.
Charles Roberts trying to catch Joe Smith tonight. Amongst the touchdown leaders right there, and he is, as you mentioned earlier, passed him in the yardage department. And he will play tomorrow night.
Well, Ben Sankey has put together some drives, amassed some yards, but just 2 field goals so far. Look out! Long out, and it's incomplete, intended for Copeland. And Greg Moss on the corner. Bombers playing without Jerron Bolden in this game, and Greg Moss breaking that play up.
And Moss is the replacement. He's 5 games this year. Has come in different situations. Jerron Bolden is the guy who replaces this time. But this has been a little bit of an area of concern for the Bombers, is the changes in their secondary. Robert Bean had a tough week last week when he had to move over to replace Jerron Bolden in game.
At the left tackle, Garrick Jones down on the play. He's getting attention. We'll take a timeout. Stampeders lost 3 in a row without Henry Burris. He came back last week, posted a win, not played tonight, and they're in danger of losing their 4th and 5, down by 13. But Joffrey Reynolds took that center screen and is up to the 38-yard line. And a Calgary first down. 16 for Reynolds. And a reminder that Wendy's CFL on TSN continues Sunday. The Hamilton Ticats take on the Saskatchewan Roughriders at Mosaic Stadium. Live coverage begins at 2:30 Eastern, 11:30 Pacific, available on TSN HD, and I believe that stadium will be hosting a playoff game unless Calgary comes back with 12 and a half minutes to go in this one.
Yeah, the entire province of Saskatchewan watching this one closely. Calgary loses this game. They host for the first time since '88.
Sankey in trouble and tossed down. And Doug Brown's got his 2nd sack of the game.
Yeah, he has been a guy that has created a lot of problems for the Calgary offensive line with his push. He doesn't always get the stat, but that guy in the middle rarely does, because he's the guy doing the dirty work. And look at how he uses his long arms to his advantage on Jay McNeil and fight his way back to the quarterback.
So up to 6 sacks on the year. for the veteran Canadian in his 7th season with the Bombers. Working that time against the best offensive lineman on that Calgary line, Jay McNeil. Look out! Sankey just got it away. Incomplete for Joffrey Reynolds. And they're ruling incomplete, and Sankey's been shaken up.
Tom Canada came around the corner, put the hit on Sankey. Doug Brown also down. He was pushing up the middle. I know there was some question here in Winnipeg as to whether or not that was a lateral from Ben Sankey. There is Tom Canada. He's going to put the hit from around the corner. Again, the double team on Doug Brown, and I think he got poked in the eye.
Yep.
There's the hit on Sankey, and the reason he's down. Let's take a look at Doug Brown. He comes up, double team here, and you could see the left hand of Jay McNeil go into the face mask and into the eye of Doug Brown.
And McNeil wasn't even looking that way. He just had that arm up as Albert Johnson returns it across the 50. Bombers with the lead in great field position when we come back. Well, Doug Brown getting a little attention after taking a finger in the eye. He'll take a seat while Kevin Glenn goes back to work. And quickly gets it into the hands of Terrence Edwards. And Edwards cutting back into the middle, and big yardage for Terrence Edwards down to the Calgary 37-yard line. 21 more for the leading receiver in the Canadian Football League.
On that play, the receiver, in this case Terrence Edwards, has got to get one block. He's in the middle here, and he's got to get one block. And where does he get that block? He gets it, I believe, from O'Neal Wilson. O'Neal Wilson right there gets the one block on Dwayne Carpenter he needs, and then he's off to the races.
157 yards last week against Calgary. Touchdown here tonight. A fake to Roberts, and Kevin Glenn on his own, and he gets chased down from behind. And a flag down on the play. 3 for Kevin Glenn.
I wonder if there was a face mask in there. Brian Clark was across the top of the helmet as he made that tackle on Kevin Glenn from behind.
Major foul, face mask, Calgary number 48. 15-yard penalty from the end of the play. First down.
That's the call against the former Bomber.
Yeah, and I know he didn't mean to do that. Brian Clark was just in pursuit of Kevin Glenn here. This is a great angle, the reverse angle for you. And look at the right hand. It does get across the face mask. It pulls his head down, and then he goes down to the waist after that. But he'll be called with that, and that puts it right in that red zone.
Bumped into his old sidekick at halftime, Scott Coe, who tells us he'd like to be ready for next week, but they will in all likelihood hold him out for another week after that as he rehabs a knee. There's Glenn throwing low, and Armstrong got down there and pulled it off his shoe tops.
You know, just one quick note about that. You know, Scott Coe gets back. You know, the odd man out of this defensive change for the Calgary Stampeders has been Cornelius Anthony, and you have to feel for Cornelius Anthony, who's not in the lineup tonight. A healthy scratch with 68 hits leading his team, 56 tackles coming in leading his team, 8 sacks leading his team, and he can't get in the lineup because of this change in the defensive philosophy.
It is puzzling, though, when you see those stats and you wonder how he doesn't fit, but 2nd and inches. Once again, Glenn will follow the push of Avi Khan. Kyle Koch, who has done a nice job replacing the injured Matt Sheridan, the Kenora kid at left guard, who had to debut against Tyrone Williams and has graded out pretty well on that offensive line.
Well, he just made some key blocks along with the guy right to his right, which is Avi Khan. And I think both of them have been the best offensive linemen in the game for both teams here tonight. And all you have to do is look at the numbers of the running back to find out which O-line is playing the best.
They may have bought themselves a dinner from Charles Roberts the way they've opened holes for number 1 so far. Let's see if they go to number 1, 1st and goal. They do. Charles Roberts. Justin Phillips, the first-round pick of the Stampeders out of Laurier with the tackle, and you don't like to see this. You don't often see this as Roberts isn't getting up.
Yeah, he does not stay down. Charles Roberts, well documented, we've said it many times, has not missed a game in a long time. How a guy that's that size for the running back position at 180 pounds can be so durable. But Brandon Browner comes up and forces the issue to the inside. You know, he makes that move right there on Phillips. And there's Browner who puts the helmet on him.
Looked like he got a helmet on the left knee. So they're working on Charles Roberts and everybody at Canad Inns Stadium holding their breath. Well, the star of the game remains down as he continues to get attention. With 8 minutes and 15 seconds left in the fourth quarter.
Always a concern down the stretch, but the Winnipeg Blue Bombers did not have the same sort of options that the Calgary Stampeders had. Chris, you mentioned early on that the Stamps are looking at realistically third place in the West, and it's good that he's putting some weight on that right and left knee and walking off on his own. Good news for Bomber fans, and they're going to give him a standing ovation as he comes off. But the Winnipeg Blue Bombers didn't have that luxury, just 1 point ahead of the Toronto Argonauts coming into this game. If they can hang on and win it, and that's a great sign. Now he looks like he'll be okay. They didn't have that luxury to rest some starters like a Henry Burris with Calgary. They want to lock up first place.
You know, it's remarkable. 5'6", 180 pounds. He has not missed a game in the last 5 years. He's missed 2 in a 7-year career.
And never missed a game in college in 4 years. He never missed one football game. It's just amazing for a running back, first of all, and then a running back that stands 5'6", 182.
So Fred Reed comes in, second and goal. And Kevin Cole gets it to the goal line. Touchdown. We're going to get a debate about it.
Well, Brandon Browner wants Tom Higgins to throw the challenge flags. Milt Stegall comes across from the outside.
Man, is it number 144 or not? Milt says, go ahead, challenge it.
He said, go ahead. Now,
that probably means that Milt's quite sure it's going to stand.
I saw Milt Stegall's feet beyond the line, but we have seen a case this year where the receiver's feet have been across the goal line, but the ball hasn't been. Milt Stegall, the outside receiver, that was Andre Talbot, by the way, in Toronto, but his feet right there are over the line. Now, does the ball, first of all, is he catch it and maintain possession? Second of all, does the ball cross the plane of the goal line?
It looks like the ball's on the goal line, which would be a touchdown, but did he have possession? And Tom Higgins has thrown the challenge flag. And so Glenn Johnson will have to go under the hood, and we won't chalk up officially number 144.
I'm not sure if Tom Higgins, and he wants to
Calgary has challenged the ruling on the field that the player caught the football. I'll review it.
He did drop that one. I mean, Milt was trying a little reverse psychology. I dare you to challenge.
Well, I think Milt was wondering if he was challenging that he crossed the line. And Tom Higgins challenged that he didn't catch the ball. And I think you can see on a couple of those angles that ball hit the turf.
You know, had it counted out of 144 touchdowns, that would have been the 60th in the fourth quarter. Talk about clutch. Yeah. And another one of the interesting aspects of Milt's unparalleled touchdown mark is that he has had more touchdowns on the road than here at home. But this is one that will not likely go into the books.
Well, here's a new angle for both the folks at home and the officials under the hood. Tough to tell there if that's the ball or his elbow, but from the two shots we saw from the front of Milt Stegall, it looked like that ball may have come through to the turf. Now ruled a touchdown, so therefore they have to find the evidence to overturn it again. But I know over the last few weeks, talking to Milt Stiegel's teammates, they sort of compare this situation to the Pittsburgh Steelers situation with Jerome Bettis a couple of years ago, and they've said that, you know, that team rallied and wanted to win it for Jerome Bettis, and this team wants to win one for Milt Stiegel, because he's said many times he's at 99% that this will be his final season in the CFL, and what a career it has been.
Not counting that catch or no catch. 40 yards tonight, 287 behind Alan Pitts on the all-time list, so he'll need a couple of huge games down the stretch, or a big final 8 minutes here. Let's see if they add 6 more yards to his totals and a touchdown. Glenn Johnson taking the maximum and a little bit more here before he comes out to render a decision.
Upon review, there's no conclusive evidence the player did not catch the football. Therefore, ruling on the field stands. A touchdown.
Well, that was the only question I had, and that's why when you mentioned that it was ruled a touchdown, the evidence has to show that it's enough to overturn. It looked like it hit the ground from those angles. However, was it close enough to see that it hit the ground, or it hit his arm going down to the ground? Not enough evidence, apparently.
So it is touchdown 144. I'm a little surprised. Thought there was enough evidence, but it goes into the books, and Kula adds the extra point. Number 144 for Milt Stiegel. Well, there's no quibbling with 143 of them, but I still am surprised that that one is allowed to stand. Milt Stiegel has given the Bombers a 20-point lead with a controversial catch. And we've now enhanced the video, and I think it becomes a lot more conclusive.
Yeah, I mean, Milt Stiegel might have got away with one here that did slip out, because when you enhance the video, you can see that, but now the official does not see that enhanced video.
And we're not just trying to embarrass the official. No, a little more time with a break to do that, but it is a 20-point lead.
Conclusive evidence.
Yep.
Conclusive being the word that is, and then just from the original angles, it didn't look like there was enough for the officials to overturn it. But
Milt with a new jersey. Not sure if these are for merchandising, whether somebody else gets a chance to buy a Milt Stiegel game-worn touchdown worn jersey.
They've sold a few 85s through the years.
Big autograph session yesterday with his old sidekick, Kahari Jones. That's, by the way, the 35th touchdown catch by Milt from Kevin Glenn. And a run by Joffrey Reynolds as we head down to Sean Churchill.
Chris, it looks like Doug Brown's night is over. Rob Lazio poked him in the eye. They're checking his cornea. They're checking his vision. With the 20-point lead, better safe than sorry, and keep him on the sidelines for the rest of the game, guys.
And that is the only way you will make Doug Brown cry, is to poke him in the eye.
Now he's had a big night. And we've got another injured Bomber. That's Ike Charlton that has gone down, and he'll get some attention here.
Yeah, and when you're a team that you see these guys go down, we saw Charles Roberts go down, Ike Charlton here down, Doug Brown sitting on the bench. Obviously that's scary stuff for the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, but that's why you fight for first place. That's why you battle for first place, because that gives you more time to be as healthy as you possibly can for that one crucial game that gets you into the big show.
Charlton up, favoring the right arm or shoulder. This will be a big win for the Bombers, though, because there was, to the point of concern here, that they didn't right the ship with games against Toronto and Montreal, that even a home playoff game was suddenly a question here. Doug Barry felt like they needed 2 wins, including next week against Toronto, to nail down first. Here's Ben Sankey, batted down by Tom Canada.
The line has done a pretty nice job with the help of some double teams for Calgary to keep Tom Canada from the backfield. He has made a few tackles, but if you're being held up on the line of scrimmage, that's the next progression, and he knocks that one out of the air.
Came into the game, one off the sack lead of Cam Wake, who we'll see tomorrow in BC when the Lions meet the Eskimos. 2nd and 10. Here comes the rush, and a pass up for Copeland, and incomplete. Looked like David Bush almost came up with the interception. Let's head back to the sidelines and rejoin Danny McManus.
Chris and Glenn, Ben Sankey has proved enough tonight that he could play quarterback if something would happen to Henry Burris. But the obvious statement I'm going to make here, Henry Burris needs to be the quarterback of the Calgary Stampeders if they're going to have a run at the championship.
No argument, but I think we knew that before this game.
Yeah, and you know, but it is a good point that Ben Sankey has shown enough, I think, tonight. He didn't put the points on the board. He didn't finish drives, but he did move the football. He showed great composure. He showed that in an emergency, they could get through the game with Ben Sankey.
Bombers defense has been much sharper in the second half. Albert Johnson changing direction, and he's taken down at the 25-yard line.
But, you know, the point is a good one. And consider this. After 3 games in the regular season, the Calgary Stampeders fans wanted Henry Burris out of town.
Yep.
And in the last 10 games, he has said, hold on, 62.6%, over 3,000 yards passing, and look at the touchdowns to interceptions, folks. And this is off the heels of 401 passing. That is the quarterback that's going to lead them to the championship if they get there.
And we expect that Henry Burris will start next week. Part of the decision-making process was that coming off an injury, this was the second game in 5 days for Burris. Took that one shot from Mike Charlton last week and was okay. Here's Reed in at running back as Charles Roberts has not gone back out onto the field, and we probably won't see him even if he's okay with a 20-point lead.
I don't think he will, but just to wrap up that thought on Henry Burris, it's that whole feeling of you don't know what you have until it's gone. And when Henry Burris was out of the lineup for 2 games, when Henry Burris is out of the lineup tonight, it's a very different offense, obviously.
Now, it wasn't his call, but he did indicate to us that he thought he could play in this game and next week. And it's complete. Stiegel with another catch up to the 40-yard line.
Yeah, and I think Charles Roberts, you see, he's got the coat on. You mentioned that, Chris. He's out and probably will stay out. And you got to think also that Kevin Glenn can't be far away from the same thing.
Doug Barry doesn't look too concerned about Robert's status, which is a good news situation here after he went down for a while. And
that's a real good sign.
Yeah.
They're having some fun on that side.
Yeah, that doesn't look like they're concerned about an injury.
No.
And he'll have a 103-yard lead in the rushing race going into Joe Smith's right tomorrow. Rodrigo, 2 yards here. And run into Calgary territory to the 49 before Dwayne Carpenter brings him down. But Fred Reed's been impressive in very spotty circumstances this year. He come in once in a while and he keeps carrying the ball for effective yards.
How about that acceleration to the corner? Very impressive for Fred Reed. A little different. I mean, he's also a smaller running back at 5'8", like Charles Roberts, 183, like Charles Roberts. But Charles Roberts is that cutback slasher, and Fred Reed showed great acceleration there.
22 yards for Reed, 2:17 in the game for the Bombers. A fake to Reed and a throw that Stiegel pulls down, and Milt Stiegel gets a little closer to Alan Pitts. Down to the 31. 16 for Milt.
You got to believe that Milt Stiegel is going to need in his last 3 here one of those 150, 160-yard games. He was 327, I believe, coming into tonight.
I believe he's now got 62 on the night.
62 on the night, so he's chipping away, but still well over 200 with 2 games to go after the last 3 minutes of this one. So still doable for a guy like Milt Stegall, who's had some 200-yard games in his career. 70, yeah.
They took a few off him. They didn't have the touchdown in there, so he's getting a little closer. Yeah, that pass was deflected. Incomplete. 3-minute warning here in Winnipeg. 26-6. Bombers.
1,000-yard season for Milt Stegall, and they will likely have 3, maybe even by the end of tonight. Derek Armstrong real close, just I think 6 yards away. Charles Roberts been the MVP of this game. He has been the MVP for the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, no question.
2nd and 10. Good hitter in O'Neal Wilson. Incomplete.
O'Neal Wilson, the intended receiver.
And it will be 3rd down.
You know, I'm a little surprised to see Kevin Glenn in the game. I know he started this drive. You don't have to take the quarterback out. His one receiver that doesn't have 1,000 yet is right there, Derek Armstrong. It was right on the doorstep, but I'm sure he'd like to get him the ball tonight. But, you know, again, you take those risks when you have the big lead and you leave your starting quarterback in the game.
I think this offensive performance is going to get mixed reviews here for the Bombers.
Well, the running game, I think they'll be pretty happy with.
It's not hitting on all cylinders, but boy, Charles Roberts is right now. Pakula attempting this field goal from 39, and he has missed it. And that will be a point of concern again here, especially when the games get more important in a few weeks.
Single point in the end zone, 2:38 left in the game.
Well, we have 2 minutes and 38 seconds remaining here, and a reminder that coming up next, Sports Center, Dutch and Jen will bring you up to date on everything going on in the world of sports. Sports Center comes your way following this game.
That will be interesting this week, and that audition, I believe, will continue for the Winnipeg Blue Bombers between Troy Westwood and Rob Pakula. I mean, I'm not sure Doug Barry is any clearer in his kicking situation right now than he was to start this game.
Ben Sankey down all the way. That's an incompletion. He did clarify the situation this week. He said they had a kick down again to decide who would be the place kicker in this game, and Troy Westwood just did not wrest the job back away from Rob Pakula.
Well, do they go back again this week and do it all over again, and maybe Troy Westwood gets one more window of opportunity, try and get himself back on the roster and keep himself there to the end of this season? But Rob Pakula has kicked a few balls on punting situations into the end zone, which he shouldn't have. Those were mistakes, and then misses that one. So Troy Westwood isn't quite out of the picture just yet, I don't think.
2nd and 10. And that pass complete to Kenyon Rambo, trying to stretch for the 1st down. He's a few yards short.
See if Calgary Stampeders elect to go ahead here and gamble. But, you know, you look at the Calgary Stampeders situation, Tom Higgins' decision not to play Henry Burris tonight. You know, it's a safe decision. He is banged up with that shoulder. We've talked about that. The only risk involved with this is to sort of start to think these games down the stretch aren't that important. And we're going to finish 3rd in the West, so that's where we're going to finish. Let's get ready for the playoffs. It's just football players are creatures of habit. And you either have good habits, competitive, play hard habits, or they start to trickle away and become bad habits in a hurry. Now, I'm not suggesting that the Calgary Stampeders can't snap out of it. Henry Burris showed that he doesn't have to play every single week to stay sharp. He missed 2 and came out and threw 401 yards and 5 touchdowns. He proved that. But that is the only risk involved with coming into a game and saying, you know what, this one really isn't that big a deal.
Well, the Stampeders will go for it. 3rd and 1. And they'll toss a little misdirection, and Reynolds has the 1st down and crosses midfield down to the Winnipeg 49. So This drive will continue. Tom Canada the tackle in the second half. Calgary with 5 punts and a fumble. And still looking for their first points of the second half.
Well, the other thing that this game has provided the opportunity, we've talked about Ben Sankey and his opportunity, but it's really shown the importance of Joffrey Reynolds. He's only had 11 carries for 49, but it's been a spectacular 49. I mean, Joffrey Reynolds is again reminding the coaching staff in Calgary that, hey, when it gets cold and the weather gets nasty, don't worry about the running game.
David Bush shaken up, and he gets some attention. And we've got a break to tell you that time for the Friday Night Gladiator, brought to you by Castrol. More than just oil, it's liquid engineering.
The Gladiator is not necessarily the most valuable player in the game. Sometimes that guy in the trenches, and tonight in the trenches, I really believe Doug Brown took his game to another level. He created openings for his linebackers. I think Cam Hall had a huge night tonight because of that penetration from Doug Brown.
And now Tom Canada had Sankey in the grasp, who underarms it, incomplete. And did he get it to the line of scrimmage, or did he have a receiver in the area? Tom Canada thought he had sack number 13. So, Doug Brown, tonight's Gladiator, receives a Movado Series 800 watch. Movado, the art of performance.
It looked good on Doug Brown's wrist, and he deserved it tonight. He got poked in the eye, fought the double team all night long. So, Series 800 for Doug Brown.
2nd and 10. Sankey double pumps, and now looks for Brett, who's open and can't bring it in. Just a little out of his reach. Greg Moss trying to scamper back, but Ralph was in behind coverage.
Not a good example of why, I think Danny McManus is right what he said on the sideline a moment ago about Ben Sankey showing enough that the Calgary Stampeders can feel pretty comfortable with him as the backup to Henry Burris, because this was a play that really broke down on him as the pocket started to collapse. But he buys time, a couple pump fakes there, and going the opposite direction, really threw a touchdown pass that Brett Ralph just couldn't run under, but it's a pretty good throw.
Now it's 3rd and 10 for the Stamps. Sankey with some time, and he has a completion. So they'll keep this drive alive with a Jermaine Copeland catch. George Cortez was saying before the game he asked Ben Sankey to go through the ready list and circle plays that he might not have practiced yet. And there were a few. And he said in the game against Saskatchewan, they ran a play in that game. He asked Sankey, have you run this in practice? Sankey said no. Cortez wanted to call it off. Sankey said, no, we'll go with it. I'm okay. It was an interception. So he's still catching up here. There's a pass on the backfield, and Joffrey Reynolds has another catch. He'll step out just in front of that first down stick, a gain of 9 for Reynolds. But that just gives you an indication that, Ben Sankey's not completely armed coming into this game, and he's done a pretty good job in a very short time in Calgary.
I think he has. He's done a very good job. Consider at halftime it was a 12-6 ball game with a quarterback that's been in town 3 weeks. So a real decent job by Ben Sankey. He did what he accomplished what he wanted to accomplish, was to give the coaching staff a little confidence in it.
2nd and inches. Here's the toss to Reynolds, working against Neil McKinley, and Joffrey Reynolds has another first down.
Chris, but when I talk about that risk for the Calgary Stampeders, it was clear when they made this decision that they kind of knew where their position was going to be in the West, and that was going to be 3rd. And it reminded me of something Ken Austin said of the Saskatchewan Roughriders, who will clinch a whole playoff game with the Calgary loss here. He said it doesn't matter what Calgary does. We want to be playing our best football down the stretch in these last 3 games going into the playoffs, and that's the only concern. Calgary wants to play their best going in.
There's Sankey, moves around and just got it away into the end zone and out of the reach of Kenyon Rambo. Now, the Eskimos are saying, well, we've still got a chance here. We're 4 back. And for the Eskimos, though, they do not get the tiebreaker with Calgary. The magic number will remain 1 for Calgary to clinch a playoff spot in the West. Eskimos magic number to be eliminated is 2 in the crossover in the West. So it's more than likely Calgary is staying exactly where they are right now.
Yeah, Edmonton, desperation time. We'll see them tomorrow night. But congratulations to the Saskatchewan Roughriders. It's been a long, long time since they've been able to buy playoff tickets in that province.
Sankey again underneath. And Nick Lewis with a catch to the 13-yard line, has 7.
And, you know, by the way, an important game for the BC Lions tomorrow night as well. When you consider that Saskatchewan, while they've now locked up home field advantage, first place in the West is not locked up by the BC Lions. And I know Saskatchewan still will have their sights on that position and try and get not only home field, but a bye to the final. So BC Lions have to take care of business as well.
Third down gamble of this drive. 3rd and 3. Sankey with time. And he has the first down. A completion to Nick Lewis in traffic.
Stop for 3.
Very valuable reps for Ben Sankey. And another nice catch by Nick Lewis. He's made a couple of these. He's the middle receiver in the 3-receiver side there. And he's made a couple of catches like this where he's had defenders around him. Kyrisa Bear in that case from the safety spot came up too. But reps with the first-team offense, first-team receiving corps, very important.
Close! Final minute. And a 1st and goal from the 3. And Sankey with the fade pattern to Ryan Thelwell out of the end zone, incomplete.
And again, in fairness to the Winnipeg Blue Bomber defense, who, you know, other than a couple of drives that didn't end up in anything but field goals for Calgary in the first half, the Winnipeg defense turned it up in the second half. That's something that, you know, they wanted to establish as well as they try and lock up first place in the East. And in fairness to them, down the stretch here in this drive, it's a different game when you're up 27-6 for the Winnipeg defense right now.
Sankey with an 11-play drive. This is the 12th play. Gonna cash it here. Here comes the heat. Into the end zone. Touchdown. Brett Ralph off his hip in tight coverage by Greg Moss.
You know what Brett Ralph did on this catch is that he waited and didn't give away by his eyes or moving his arms to the football that the ball was about to arrive, and Greg Moss was not tipped off to it. He had his back to Ben Sankey, who once again buys a little bit of time, gets the ball out there, and pretty cool customer, Brett Ralph, coming off his best game as a pro for a touchdown catch there, and now he'll hold for the extra point.
3rd touchdown grab of the year for Ralph. And the extra point is through. 27-13 Winnipeg. There's Brett Ralph, made his 49th catch of the year and his 3rd major score. Capping a long Calgary scoring march. 39 seconds left, 27-13. Here in Winnipeg, it'll be the Bombers just their 2nd win over Calgary in the last 7 starts.
And Calgary's struggles on the road continue a little bit. But a veteran move there by Brett Ralph in just his 2nd year to come up with that kind of composure for that touchdown catch is a nice play by him.
Stamps just kicking away. Albert Johnson works his way up near the 40-yard line. This will move Winnipeg 3 points ahead of Toronto, pending the showdown at Olympic Stadium tomorrow between the Alouettes and the Argos. And the next game up for Doug Barry may very well be for first place in the CFL East.
I figured he had to win 2 of his final 3. He thought it would probably be the Toronto-Montreal game. In fact, he was trying to emphasize yesterday at the press conference that this game is not really must-win. You know, and the players were calling it differently. They were wanting it to be a must-win situation.
It ends a 2-game losing streak, but the next game is the key, because the Argos can win out and win the East. which a lot of people didn't think was possible about a month ago. Kevin Glenn draining the clock here.
Well, the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, it looked like Charles Roberts was okay. It looks like Doug Brown will be okay. Ike Charlton may be a bit of a question. See what happens there.
Bombers will win their 6th at home in 8 starts. They'll move to 9-6-1 on the year. And they'll get set for a huge game with Toronto. They post a 27-13 victory here to avenge last week's loss at McMahon Stadium. 27-13, the final score. As we say so long from Winnipeg and rejoin Dave Randall.